Mm-hmm. Hello. Hi, everyone. Here's our first. Let's see. We got a lot of stuff we're going to get. We're hitting Rumor Chart today. Rumor Chart Day launched is one of my favorite days of the year. But first to Russ. Russ, what do you got?
So yesterday was the inaugural USFL draft. The USFL is back. I'm not sure anybody cares, but I'm going to read a tweet from them. Draft one, round one quarterbacks, and it says, who are you most excited about? Shea Patterson, Jordan Ta'amu, Brian Scott, Ben Holmes, Clayton Thorson, Alec McGuff, Kyle Lauletta, or Kyle Sloter. Has anybody heard of any of these quarterbacks?
I don't think their parents have heard of them.
Yeah, I've heard of him because, Shea Patterson played at Michigan, and so for the Panthers to take him was a real kind of astute.
Okay, so do you think he'll be good in that league?
It's hard to tell. I don't know how good the USFL is. I covered the last USFL, and I covered the Michigan Panthers too. Anthony Carter was on that team, Bobby Hebert.
Okay.
They were championship.
Oh yeah, there were some great players. Jim Kelly.
Yeah, for sure.
I was in Houston then when Jim Kelly was doing, with Mouse Davis, and so I did watch those on TV. But this is a whole different bowl of wax. They're digging deep, I think, on this one, Kev.
No, that's true. But they, those guys weren't household names when they took them. There's a few guys that they stole that the NFL wanted, but for the most part, there was a lot of players in that league that wouldn't have gotten a shake. But the biggest name in the USFL, in retrospective, not at the time, of course, is President Donald Trump, who was involved.
Yeah, I know. We don't know.
I guess that's bigger than Reggie White. That's true.
Yeah, well, bigger than Herschel Walker.
Yeah,
it was great.
All right,
let's get rolling.
I had season tickets for 3 years to the Philadelphia Stars. There you go.
Yeah,
I loved it.
Jim Finks, wasn't it?
Fox?
No, it was the Saints. Jim Moore, I think.
Jim Moore. That's right.
There you go. Thank you. I knew it was a Jim.
Yep, there you go. Hello, Hockey World. It is Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022.
I'm Michael Agello, and Jack Campbell has come down to earth.
I'm Russ Cohen, and the world should be lucky enough to have a whole team of Cohens.
You heard that.
Yeah. Kevin Allen, Hockey Buzz. Yeah.
And I'm Eklund, and I'm impressed, Russ. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday. If you're wondering what Russ is talking about, you have to watch yesterday's show. But it's a lot of fun. And we are here today to launch the Hockey Buzz Rumor Chart. Woohoo! I got my bell right here.
Put it away, please.
No, my bell's for when everyone.
Or something. You're a musician, don't you?
I love my bell. No, this is my bell that when anybody says something that I totally agree with, I'm supposed to hit this bell. It's a podcast thing. All right, so which means that we have this rumor chart that goes up on Hockey Buzz. It supports the site big time, and those of you who are season ticket holders really help us out with it. $20 a year. I'm not trying to sell this hard, but it's $20 that helps us all big time. And also, the other thing about it is with the rumor chart, you get the website for that $20. You get the website advertising free completely, which I think is worth it in and of itself. Can't tell the advertisers I think that, but I do. So if you want to have if you want to have a great $20, it really helps keep us going. We really appreciate it. So anyway, here we go. 46 players. And the great thing about this year, more Kevin Allen influence, which I appreciate. Kevin and I spent the last couple of days on the phone talking about this, and we've had some really great discussions. It's so much more fun, and Kevin's got totally different people than I talk to, a lot more people than I talk to, and just a lot of great information. So we're not going to tell you which is from which to still protect our sources, but you'll see what's going on here. But there's definitely, and we don't always agree on everything, but it's a lot of right now. It's a lot of early agreement. And one of the interesting things about this chart, so we launched with 46 players, which is been doing the last couple of years is close to 50 players. This year, I didn't think it would be there because this trade deadline is so tricky, but still got to 46 players, and that's after cutting out like 4 or 5 players today that we aren't going to put up there quite yet. But yeah, this is and then this gives you the idea. This is not necessarily where we're hearing. It's partially where you're hearing that they're going to, but it's also partially just what your guess would be where they're going to. So it's a combination of two. Your sources come into play and your Just like, hey, this makes sense. I hear this. These are the teams are here. This team makes a little more sense maybe in that sort of situation. So, and then we also launched with like 15 players this year, which only have percentages for their one team right now. And the reason being is this is such a complicated trade deadline, and there are so few teams involved with so many players. And the reality is that what we decided to do at the end is like just ask Kevin, what are your percent thinking that these players stay with their team? Even though we don't really have any other place for them right now, what are the percentages they stay with the team? And so there's some players like that too. And because you guys are so great to join us on this podcast, we are going to show you parts of the rumor chart that you wouldn't be able to get unless you pay $20. You're going to get it for free. So how about that? Here we go. We appreciate it. We appreciate that very much. And I'm going to start with these 4 players. And I also want to tweet out the show, Mike, which I forgot to do, which I'm going to do right now. But I'm going to do as I bring this up. So I'm going to start with these 4 players because there's 4 more interesting players, I think. And I just got my share screen thing figured out here. But here we go.
Because I've been trying to share the screen, and for some reason it wasn't working.
Yeah, it wasn't. You have to do a certain thing to your Mac. But here we go. Here's 4 players, and we're going to start with right up your alley, Russ. Good old Vitaly Kravtsov.
I could see any of those as possibilities. I think Montreal's the most likely with Jeff Gordon, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I think the Rangers are the least likely with Chris Drury there, to be honest.
You think that they're really the least likely to?
I think there's an issue there.
Well, the question I have with the one that's the highest percentage, because if you look at the list, 20% with the Sharks, that's a Hurdle deal. 15% for the Canadians, that's a Sherrod deal. 10% with Dallas, that's probably a Klingberg deal or a Pavelski deal. What's the 25% for Ottawa? Is it
they like him?
No. But I mean, the Rangers are going to expect something back, probably something that would help them.
Well, Ottawa's got a load of draft picks. They might take draft picks.
I mean, this would be, essentially what would happen if they would just make a regular hockey trade and get back some medicine.
Yeah, Connor Brown would make sense because he's a good forward, good two-way forward, and he's got a year left in his contract. But I don't think Ottawa's in a rush to trade him. So if it's draft picks and then they flip the draft pick someplace else
could be, or they get it. But I think the 30% for the Rangers, Zach, isn't not just a reflection of the fact that they don't have to trade him now.
Right. That's what it is. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they could trade him. And in fact, they would probably do better if they waited till the off season.
Now, I'll give you a player that on the Senators, and that would make sense in the sense of if the Rangers think that they're going to make a long playoff run and playing against teams like Washington with the physical force that they have, a guy like Nick Paul is somebody that is going to get moved at the deadline, and teams that are contending are going to be interested because of his salary, which is $1.35 million, which is practically nothing. Now he's not a big scorer, but he probably fits in as a third line guy who can play wing and center. And I think he'll be somebody that is attractive to a number of teams, maybe even the Rangers.
Yeah, I like him. I mean, I think that I know when you talk about Pavelski, we talk about Sherrod and Hurdle. The Rangers probably have other ways to do that, as well. I mean, they probably have other ways besides this guy. Ottawa's an interesting. I've said this before. There's going to be teams that you don't expect to be in on these guys that are in on these guys, because there's only a few teams out there who are going for it this year with players that have the money to do that.
Well, here's the thing with Ottawa that I found interesting. I talked with somebody who covers the team. Pierre Dorion is more than willing and more than prepared to be the middleman in a number of deals because they have, I believe, something like $28 million in cap space, and they're always interested in acquiring assets. Now, eventually, Pierre Dorion came out and said, "Well, we're not going to be. This is the last year we're going to be sellers." I mean, from your mouth to God's ear, but the way you can facilitate that not being the case is, use that cap space to your advantage, be the middleman, take salary off of some players. That'll be only till the end of the year, but you might get first, second, third round picks. You might get prospects for that. And that just makes sense because that organization needs as many assets as they can get.
They really do.
Is the ownership there really going to pay that money? I mean, I realize it's only a fraction of the season, but it's still, if you do too many of them, it adds up.
I think only a couple. I don't think they'll use all of it. They'll do a couple.
That's what I was skeptical of, Kev. But I mean, the report is that Dorian. Now, I'm assuming that if Dorian is willing to do that, he's got the stamp of approval from Eugene. Yeah. But we'll see.
Let's slip on to Mark Giordano. Now, this is this Flames thing is a little bit of my wishful thinking, I think, perhaps. But
that's been out there, Rack.
I know I've heard that they're definitely. But it's just as far as percentages go, I feel like the universe needs Mark Giordano to be with the Flames right now. That they're one of the best teams they've ever been. I just feel like he went through so much in that team that I want the universe to bring it back together. I wanted to find a way to do this because he has been such a huge part of that team for such a long time. And this, I'm about ready to say that I think the Calgary Flames are maybe the best team from Canada in 20 years. This is a serious team. No, give me about 20 years from Canada.
They do have a lot going on.
Yeah.
When I was putting together my little review of that team, I was surprised how they're a factor in every category. Like even their face-off percentage is 51%. Yeah. Defensively, they're number one. They're tied for 7th in offense. Their goaltender is among the top 2 in the league in terms of almost every statistical category. Their power play is good. Giordano is having an unbelievable year, leading by 5 points in the even strength points. Yeah. Everything's going well. Their penalty killing is, at a high level, and they're hard to play against. That there's a lot to like about this team. If they were playing Colorado tomorrow, I would view that as a how I always look at series. If they played 10 times, who would win? To me, it feels like a 5-5, 6-4 type.
I'm with you.
Series. So I think they're a legitimate team, and I don't think they're done. And I think they'll figure out a way to make one more move. And why not bring in a guy? The one thing they're lacking, for those who haven't read my piece, is historically Stanley Cup winners have had a big time defenseman, and a potential future Hall of Famer thing. Calgary doesn't really have that. There's some very good defensemen. Hanifin has been terrific. Anderson is good. I mean, they've got a lot of very good defensemen, but they don't have that one dominant guy. And Giordano has been that guy. Now, he's probably not that guy anymore, but he has certainly been a top defenseman.
But their depth on defense, I mean, their number 7 is Michael Stone, and he's an NHLer, but he's not, I mean, if one guy goes down in the playoffs, then Michael Stone 15 minutes a night. You definitely want to be 7-8 deep in terms of defensemen. And Giordano, I mean, it wouldn't be that much of an issue for him to fit right back into what they're doing because he was there last year. But
and the thing about Giordano too, he's $6 million plus. So, you half him because they'll retain half.
Right.
Now you got him down to 3-2. I mean, if you launder some cap space through a third team, now you got him down to 1-7,
1-6, 1-7, something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's doable. I mean, the Calgary is not swimming in cap space, but I think they could figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
One team, Eck, that I just have a gut feeling. I have not heard anything, but just based on where scouts have been, I'm going to add Giordano for the Carolina Hurricanes too, because I think Ian Cole is kind of like, he's good, but he's replaceable. If you get someone like Giordano and you really want to make sure Anderson's got maybe the best defense in the East in front of him, that's a way to do it.
That's an interesting call.
The only thing I would say about Carolina is, and I had a conversation with Don Waddell about this, in order for him to make a trade, unless somebody gets hurt here, he's got to give up somebody off his roster. And he basically told me, I don't have anyone to give up off my roster.
D'Angelo got hurt in the Flyers game taking a shot with his hand. That could be the injury.
Will he be out the rest of the season?
I haven't heard anything yet.
And he's only he's only a million or 1.1, so he's not a big.
Yeah. But if you're, even if he was like long term, in fact, if they lost him, I think they'd even be more inclined to go after a guy like Giordano.
Yeah.
I think they like him. So
yeah, I mean, he's a hard first player not to like. Honestly, he's just he does so much well, and he's such a good teammate. Everybody I've ever talked to that's played with him talks about how great it is to play with him, and he seems like a Sutter player. Like Calgary got rid of him not just because they had to. They were in a situation where they had to, and they made economical sense. But that Sutter probably wasn't in the room voting that they get rid of Giordano. That couldn't have been the case.
Right. They really didn't have much of an option.
Right.
No,
exactly.
They didn't have any option.
Now the second team on your list, I can shoot down what is going to be reported, because a lot of things that are going to be reported over the next month, the unfortunate news this morning. There's really sad news about Rodion Amirov, the Leafs first round pick from 2020, who was diagnosed late last month with a brain tumor. I mean, we all hope for the best. He's a young kid, but who knows in terms of his future? I mean, right now it's somebody probably you have to say, he's never going to play in the NHL. We hope he does. And we said the same thing about Oscar Lindblom and Brian Boyle, but this is a brain tumor. And I don't remember any other NHL player having a brain tumor and coming back. I really hope. Yeah. So, but the point I'm making here is with the Leafs and their prospect pool, most of these rentals, Giordano, Rasmus Ristolainen, Klingberg, if he's shopped, Ben Sherratt, these teams are going to expect first round picks. More than likely, if the Leafs are trading a first round pick, it's going to be for somebody who's got term left, because they really can't afford to trade a first round pick with their prospect pool down by one. With what happened with Amirov, they need, if they're going to get a return of a first round pick or give a return of a first round pick, it has to be somebody who solves an issue for multiple years. So I think that they're out there for a defenseman, but in terms of a guy, I would say it's somebody who has term left and not a rental.
Right. Yes and no. I mean, in my opinion, I think that they're at the point where they kind of have to go for it. I think. Well,
I agree, but the thing is unless Kyle Dubas has been told that you're done unless you win a round this year, he's got to think of the future too.
Yeah.
And if you're giving up a first round pick, then you need something that's just more than the last 20 games of the regular season and the playoffs. You need something that's going to solve issues for a year or two.
Right.
And there are players out there like that. It's just a question of whether they're going to be willing to make that deal. I mean, Elliot Friedman reported yesterday, and I didn't hear anything in connection of this guy and the Leafs, but mentioned JT Miller in connection with the Leafs and it being more of a multiplayer deal. Involving a guy like Luke Shen, who's got another year on his contract, but he's sort of a depth defenseman, so I don't know if that really answers their issues. But I don't think they're going to be making rental deals unless it's for like low to mid round picks involving dumping salary, that type of thing. If it's first round picks, I think they need long term solutions.
One thing about I'm looking at the Florida list. And I like it. The only thing is, I question what Minnesota would really give up for him when Cam Talbot and Kakkonen are doing as well as Fleury. I mean, Fleury's only 2 percentage points over Talbot, and Kakkonen's got a 921. Why would they give up significant assets for an aging goalie? I don't know if they would, but I think
it's all about the playoffs.
Yeah, but I was going to say, because those statistics, Russ, are with the piss poor.
I get it, but I mean,
and it's the statistics that matter in this type of trade would be the fact that he's won cups and
sure, but is it a guarantee that this Marc-Andre Fleury is going to do better than those guys? I don't know if it's a guarantee.
Well, there's never a guarantee.
No, but I mean, to give up assets for that when they have two good functioning goalies, one that could be a star if they gave
the trade deadline is always about that.
Yeah, what is Cam Talbot won? He's never.
No, I'm not saying Cam Talbot. I could see Talbot being in game one, losing. They go to Kakinen and he goes on a run.
I like Kakinen a lot. I think they like him too, but I think that to put the pressure on him to win them the Stanley Cup this year is a lot.
Yeah, they're not going to. That's why they would start Talbot, and if he fails,
then why not just start Fleury in that situation? Like if you're going to be in that spot where Kakinen's the guy eventually anyway. I mean, see, the reality is there's not that many places that Marc-Andre Fleury I think will agree to go to, and
that's why I scrapped the 25% with the Oilers because I don't think he'd go to that clown show.
We can talk about that in a second, because I did get some information about that over the weekend.
Okay,
but there's I do know that the Wild are very nervous about their goalies in the playoffs, and they feel like the difference will be the playoffs. And it really, when you think about the Vegas Golden Knights, the difference has been in Marc-Andre Fleury. It really is. When you look at the reality of what they've done, the great runs they've had, it's been Marc-Andre Fleury. Last year, even it was Marc-Andre Fleury. It was Marc-Andre Fleury getting past Colorado.
Well, 2 years ago it was Leonard.
Right.
2 years ago it was Leonard
in the playoffs.
In the playoffs, yes.
I know, but it was. But it was Leonard in one round. I get that, but there was but still, it still ended up going back to Fleury. Ended up being Fleury again. The reality is, Marc-Andre Fleury is a playoff big game player, right?
Sure.
And he showed it again this year when he played in Vegas with Chicago.
And Guerin knows him well, obviously.
Yes, Guerin knows him, yeah.
And that's why. And this is what the trade deadline is about. This kind of deal every year, where you're just not sure, what your team's going to do, and it's hard to project, and you're just rolling the dice, and you want to roll the dice with guys with a history, and it makes some sense. I'm not sure they're going to do it. Yeah.
And who's to say, because Chicago is looking for long-term solutions in goal because, Fleury's done at the end of this year. Lankinen is hurt right now. Talbot's got a year left in his contract. Who's to say that Talbot wouldn't be part of that deal? That they would have to clear out salary to be able to afford Fleury's $7 million salary. Who's to say that Talbot wouldn't be included in the deal going back to Chicago?
It's possible if you think that, if you think your other goalie is the guy, which they do obviously in Minnesota. Right. So that's possible. I mean, as far as the Oilers go, I was told by really good sources that there's some I call it school note passing going on, right? Where, that basically there are some players on the Oilers like Connor McDavid talking to some players around the league who know Marc-Andre Fleury and trying to get, I won't get exactly who he talked to, but trying to get, Marc-Andre Fleury to buy in. This is that this is happening now. If that's happening with, whether, the GM.
Wait a second. There's tampering going on?
Is it tampering really? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, actually it is.
It is actually tampering, isn't it? I mean, can you really stop a player from saying, hey, we'd really love to have you on our team?
So
can you stop McDavid from telling a friend of Fleury's that? We'd love to have you on your team. He's not the one.
That's borderline. It's like
that's borderline. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that they've ever gotten it for a player saying, because that does happen. Players talk to players all the time.
I mean,
absolutely, of course they do, right?
I mean, if all of a sudden the GM or interim GM of Chicago said yes, it's okay to talk to him, then that's fine. Then, if there's the agent for Fleury, which is Alan Walsh, if Alan Walsh clients who are on Edmonton wanted to talk to him, then that's not tampering. But before that, it is. It just is.
Is it real? I don't know that it's tampering. Listen. I mean, honestly, the reality is there are no laws here. It's tampering for
What is this, the Wild West?
Well, no, because you can't stop a person from telling somebody else that they think that they would be great to have on their team. We'd love to have you on our team. You can't tell a player to not be able to say that to another player. You can't do that.
I mean, when somebody said it at the draft, it cost them a first-round pick and Phil Esposito.
Right.
So if you do it in the wrong setting,
explain the draft situation.
If you do it in the wrong setting, it is tampering.
Yeah, but in a text to, I mean, we're in a world where this happens so often and players talk to each other so often. I mean, this NHL is a small world. It's a small world, NHL. And these guys they all talk to players, not just players on their team. They talk to players they grew up with. They talk to players they look up to. They talk to players that they bonded with.
I will tell you this. I know the NBA has investigated over texts. They have.
Yeah. Didn't the Lakers get penalized for something?
I believe they did, yes.
Yeah.
We've yet to see it in the NHL, and the
NHL mirrors the NBA in a lot of ways. That's the only thing.
But Eck, I mean, okay, and this is could be the last instance of tampering that I remember. Ron Wolfson goes on Toronto radio before July 1st. I think it was on June 30th, and said, "Wow, we love to get the Sedins to sign in Toronto," and they got penalized. They got penalized for just saying that in the open air.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have the rules like that, or a general manager can say to Connor McDavid, "Look, I can't call and talk to Fleury.
Right?
Why don't you call Sidney Crosby?
Yeah, right.
And tell him that if he comes here, we'll give another year, or whatever."
Yeah, right. Yeah. And even if the GM doesn't say that to him directly, the player might realize that that's out there, and do the same kind of thing anyway. It could. I mean, it really is.
That's why you got to have those rules. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that they're so hard to actually
prove
or legislate against, because it's like, let's say McDavid calls a friend, let's say Crosby calls Crosby, right, about this story, your scenario, and let's say that for a second, and that, and eventually it gets out there that he did this.
I'll tell you what they'll do. They'll do what the NFL did, and they'll ask to see their phones. And unless somebody's like Tom Brady and destroys his phone and throws it in the ocean, they're going to ask for their phones to look at it.
I mean,
you're getting into really dicey personal rights.
You can do that as a league.
But Fleury might be the one who would just say, "Yeah, that happened."
That's true.
Excuse me, we're in a world where a country is seizing bank accounts because they gave to a particular group in Canada. So it's not. I mean, we're talking about a world where we're contact tracing for COVID. So it wouldn't be that tough to trace a situation where a player talks to another player. Very easy.
No, yes, it is pretty easy to do, but it's like whether or not you could I don't know. It would be interesting to see. Like, maybe we should get a lawyer on here and talk about it, but I don't know. It would be interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're in an area where I think it's splitting hairs, so it's difficult to know what.
But I do think it happens.
I don't have that many hairs to split.
No, but it happens a lot. This is the issue about this. It's been happening a lot for years. I mean, a large part of my career has been built on these things. These like whisper down the lane things. Like I from knowing different players and knowing different people. That's like, there's a large part of this that I've been involved in it myself, like I've been and it's like, just like, like indirectly, no one's telling me that no one's saying, ask this person, but, do you think this guy would you get these things all the freaking time?
Heck, I'm not saying that it's not possible. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. I'm saying if you get caught, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fair.
You'd have to prove directly. You have to prove it directly was a result of something and led to something.
Well, people have gotten caught before. Let's put it that way.
They have, but you'd have to prove that it was anyway. Let's just say that there's a reason.
Let's go to the next name.
Let's say that Fleury is 25% for a reason. For my now, and I don't know whether to Edmonton for a reason.
I think Washington makes sense, and if he hasn't said Washington yet, depending on where the field is at the time that it's the decision has to be made, I could see him going to Washington.
Well, the one thing that hasn't been brought out, but should be, is that Fleury may not have a lot of options. Like it's not like there's 15 teams looking for a goalie.
That's the truth.
So it could come down those teams that you have listed there.
Yeah.
Maybe his only options.
Right.
And if that's the case, he's got to decide, do I want to retire or do I want to make one last run?
Yeah.
And so he may change his mind, or he may not. He may say, look,
didn't he come out publicly, Mike, and say like last week or something that he'd stay with the Blackhawks?
I saw a report of that. I mean, that
Yeah.
he liked it there. Maybe he's looking for an extension. But he could always go back to Chicago. You know, he could always
Right. Yeah, that's possible. But if he wants to, go for it one at a time, if he was going to retire and he wanted to go for it, his options will be limited.
And I'm not saying that these teams would be worthy of being put on the list, Act, because I think what you have there is right. Yeah. But I think there are more teams out there that could be in the loop, not including teams that have injured goaltenders. Take Colorado off of it because Kemper and Francouz are playing good. But you have to mix in the possibility of a team like Boston now that Rask is retired, a team like Toronto with their Jack Campbell's issues in the last, I'd say, 30 games, in the West, is St. Louis. I mean, they got Billy Husso, who's got a really great goals against, but Binnington has not had a strong year. Would they potentially be in on him? So, and I don't think he's going. I don't think he would waive if he's got I think he's got a limited no trade. I don't think he's waiving to go to Edmonton. I just don't think he's going to.
Well, I think Boston is real. Too many people are signing on to that. I heard it. I read it mentioned in just a throwaway line in Steve Simmons' column, and since then, a lot of prominent journalists who I think kind of asked around about this suddenly discovered that maybe it is a possibility. Yeah. But, again, his $7 million price tag, you're going to really need him in order to have to go there.
Unless Chicago retains 50%, and you're going to have to make it worth their while.
I mean, Boston was definitely in on him before. Like, even way before.
Yeah. Yeah, and Boston is an interesting team because they've always had a real proven goalie. And though they're, you can make a case that, well, maybe, Swayman's been good and Omark, you don't really know what they're going to do in the postseason, where Fleury has a track record. So
yeah, he just does. And he's money in the postseason. Having a money goalie in the postseason is just, you can't get around that. That's such a great thing. So I do think Fleury will come down to the very deadline day, and I think it'll be a situation of who's where. Like, say Jari gets hurt. I don't know. Yeah. If Jari gets hurt, or say Bobrovsky gets hurt.
Yeah, I was going to say
things like this. Yeah, things like that can really change everything.
Any number one goalie gets hurt, all of a sudden Fleury is an option.
Yeah, Shesterkin even. Like it's Shesterkin. It could be anybody.
I'm not so sure about Shesterkin because they do have Georgiev there, and
I don't know if they would jump on that.
Yeah.
Georgiev's name's coming up a lot too lately. We'll get to that in a second, but I don't really believe that. But no, let's go to Jakob Chychrun.
Okay.
Who is, obviously, probably if all these guys on the chart are absolutely available, Chychrun is the cream of the crop, right?
Right, but I'll tell you right now, I agree with the 55% regarding the Coyotes, but for the reason that I don't think anybody right now is going to pay the price that Bill Armstrong has put out there that he wants, at least during the season, paying the price that he wants for Chychrun. And, he's got 3 years left in his contract. It's a very reasonable amount. And Kevin, you've said before that you don't think that the price that he's asking is unreasonable. I don't think it's unreasonable either because, he's a good defenseman, but I don't think it's something that he's going to get before the deadline. I think it's a summer deal and not a deadline deal.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's better. They'd be better off trying to do this, in the summer and, because then you have 31 teams that didn't win the cup. They're looking to be bold, and it's a little easier to move assets in the summer and, all that kind of stuff. And then you've got time to convince them. The first round equivalent, which is the phrasing that was used in the Eichel deal, I think has really become fascinating because then it becomes almost like you need legal representation to make the case that he's a first-round equivalent.
Right.
Well, because your scouting department may not see a player as a first-round equivalent, and theirs does.
Yeah, but it becomes, you got to persuade them and all that kind of stuff. And I think you need the summer to do that.
Yeah,
I'm not sure you could do that now. So and
the Rangers did make the one offer, Eck, and I don't think they ever upped it. I think they basically said, we know what you're offering. This is what we would give you. And they left it there. I think that's what happened with them.
Yeah.
With who?
With the Rangers and Arizona.
I think that's what's going to happen with a lot of teams. I think that's also happened with Florida. I think actually,
you write it on a napkin and you say, "Here, this is what we'll give you," and
it makes sense to take a shot, and it makes sense to take an early shot at him.
But in the summer, I think there'll be more give and take.
In the summer, I agree. Yes.
Yeah, there will be. There'll be a lot more give and take. So you go for you take an early shot, and then you move on because you don't want to waste your time.
I mean, just use Florida as an example. I mean, if Bill Armstrong goes to Bill Zito and says, "Okay, I want either Spencer Knight or Lundell in this deal," and he's not willing to do either one of them, then I think that ends it right there. I mean, there may be enough first-round equivalents like Owen Tippett or Denisenko or whatever, but they want one of those prime prospects. And I don't think a team like Florida is willing to give up that right now. They might in the summer if they fall short and lose to Tampa or Toronto in the first round, then Florida might be in a position where, okay, we need to make this deal, so we'll do it now.
Yeah. I mean, Spencer Knight's an interesting one, right? Because obviously he's got huge upside, and everybody thinks he's going to be the next goalie, and he should be. But Bob's still signed there for a long time, and if Bob continues to play like this, the question is, has Bob gotten his game back, or is Bob going to lose his game again? Well,
I think that's why Knight won't go anywhere, because I don't think they could answer that question either.
I agree, but the thing is, if Bob continues to play like this, can Spencer Knight ever usurp him? I wonder about that.
Here's what I'll tell you. Last year, and of course, things can change from 1 year to the next.
Yeah.
But last year, Brian McCabe basically said Spencer Knight will tell us when he wants to play in the league, and he'll play in the league. Yeah. And that's what we're dealing with. And so you figure if he's got that much cachet, I don't think they're trading him anytime soon. There's no reason to. He's under their control. Why would you? Because Bob could get a career-ending injury any year, and then you've got another guy you could slip in as a number one. I just don't see why they would do it.
Yeah, but the 10-year contract does change everything.
Yeah.
Because it really prevents a buyout, and at some point you would have a level of frustration from Spencer Knight about that. Yeah. So it's not your normal run-of-the-mill goalie situation. They will have to
it definitely affects Spencer Knight's RFA negotiations. I mean, think about that. He's not going to be able to get what you would think he'd be able to get in his second contract.
But still he can't do anything about it. It doesn't really matter.
Not only the 7-year contract, but the fact that it was heavily signing bonus laden. So there is little cap relief with them buying out Bobrovsky down the line, even a year or two down the line. So
but the other side of that is they don't have to pay him very much right now. His contract goes. The amount they actually have to pay Bobrovsky does go down a lot from what I understand.
It drops off in the last 2 years. But that's 2024. So
but listen, Bob could be the modern day Rick DiPietro and be an expensive backup at some point. It might happen.
Oh yeah, no, and I thought we all thought that could happen this year.
That could.
I thought it could happen this year even, but the reality is, I think that Bob is also another, not like Fleury, but not totally unlike Fleury, proving to be another big game goalie. And I think when he's in a situation like this in Florida with a big team again, that I think he's shown that he can really rise to the occasion and be that pressure goalie.
He's got that ability. Like we all know, he's got the ability when he's locked in.
I mean, I watch a lot of Florida games and he's been phenomenal.
He's been really good.
I mean, no one will ever say Bobrovsky for a Vezina this year, but he's been in that world. He's been in there, and
I think he's just outside it. But I think he's been very effective.
Yeah, Russ is right. He is outside it because the goalies at the top have been unbelievable.
Yeah.
Shesterkin and Saros and Markstrom.
The thing is, Bobrovsky has the best home record of any goaltender in the NHL. The last time I looked, it was a couple days ago. He has like 18 wins. It's something like 18 wins at home. So he's sort of a reflection of how good that team has been. But he's still a good goaltender. So
yeah. I mean, there was a great game last night, by the way. Last thing I want to say about Chychrun is this: I talked to one GM out west who believes that Chychrun, that the game Armstrong is playing, the GM of Phoenix, is to keep Chychrun's name out there so he gets people to call him so he can discuss other things. And I think there's something to that. I think it's not an untypical game to play. I mean, because there's not a whole lot of exciting things like people calling about other Arizona players, right? So for Armstrong to be able to get that conversation going, if he calls up and says, "Hey, I want to talk to you about,"
but it's a tough transition. Like you're calling somebody for a Mustang and trying to talk him into a Ford Fiesta.
It's definitely a tough transition, but
it's a hard transition.
A Pinto with a
but it does get them on the phone, and that is like a third of the battle sometimes. So you get them on the phone, you have them talking to him at least. That's something.
But Bobrovsky is 16-2 at home. But let me just say with this, because we talked about the Arizona trade with Toronto on the weekend, and then Ryan Dzingel gets claimed by San Jose, and apparently part of this deal was that the Leafs had to take a second contract as part of the deal. So all of a sudden, ex-favorite goaltender Carter Hutton gets shipped to Toronto.
I was waiting for this to come up. I didn't want to bring it myself.
Yeah, but the thing is, he's not in Toronto, They don't have a place for him. He's so bad this year that he's staying in Arizona. He's staying with the Tucson Roadrunners. Because the Leafs are already loaded with the goaltenders.
So they just loaned him. It's like a loan.
Yeah, it's like Matt It was a trade for future considerations, and it'll cost them nothing except his $750,000 salary. So that was part, and that's the way that organization is running right now. If they can dump money, they're going to dump.
They're just paying him to finish out his career in
right.
the AHL.
They're paying him in case Mrazek and Anderson.
No, Hutchinson and Joseph Wall will be way ahead of him. Please, he's a 7 goals against, Dak.
But why would you bring him in to be your 5th goalie at $750,000?
I just told you it's
you just explained it. Yeah.
It's a salary dump. He's not playing with the Toronto Marlies. He's staying with the Tucson.
He will never set foot in Toronto.
Yeah, I know.
This is a salary dump. I get that. Okay, salary dump. I understand that, but is that the smartest way for the Leafs to handle that $750,000?
No, but that was the price that Arizona exacted on them for trading them Lyubushkin.
They really wanted Lyubushkin, so that was the price.
Yeah, and they said, we got to get rid of the salary, so take it from us.
And take on Nick Ritchie at $2.5 million next year. That opens up a lot of cap space.
I get that.
All right. Was Lyubushkin worth that? It's debatable.
Well, yeah, he's a bottom pairing guy at best. So,
well, we'll see. I mean, that's good. That's probably the best paid Arizona Roadrunner out there, I would guess right now.
Yeah.
Yes. He's probably the best paid of those guys, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Based on what the NHL guys are making, for sure.
Good game last night, and the thing I want to talk about briefly is I watched the Florida Nashville game. The Predators versus the Panthers in battles of wildcats. They were. This was a high scoring game. The Preds put up a 6 spot on Florida, in Florida, which teams don't do very often. Florida was going for a crazy record that they didn't get, which is
Kev's favorite or not favorite, but contender for the Calder, Giordano, scored 2 goals to tie the goal leader for rookie scoring, Michael Bunting. So I mean,
Giordano's in the conversation. There's no way he's not.
Yeah.
He's something. He's a player to watch. I mean,
and Giordano's hitting, still ranked in the top 10 in hits.
Yeah, I mean,
he's been phenomenal.
I don't know if he'll do this every year with the goal scoring, but he definitely will play tough every year, and he's going to be in the running.
They love him. I mean, and there was, I think that the reality is that this is such a big statement game for the Predators. Kev, do you think?
Well, yeah. And this Predators team has been so much better than anybody thought it would, and a lot of it is Saros, but there's more to it than that. Obviously, Duchesne has come back from oblivion, and they've had players kind of step up and play well. They're even considering going out and looking for a second pairing defenseman. They think it's almost too much to ask of Fabro and Carrier to keep logging the minutes when they're both young.
Fabro's having a really good year. I mean, I think they finally have settled on him. Ken, you said they were a little iffy on him.
They were iffy on him. I'm not sure that they think he's great, but I think they think he's had a good year. So, but I know for certain that they're looking for a second pairing guy.
I had Justin Braun on the rumor chart as a possibility there. I think that would make some sense.
You said a second pairing guy.
Listen, Braun, we've been through this discussion. If you have to, he can do it.
He can definitely be a second pairing guy.
I don't know if he could do it for a whole Stanley Cup run, but he could do it.
I think they're looking for a little bit more there, though.
Yeah, I would think so.
Sherratt would make sense.
I think they want a permanent solution.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
they can have the Petrie contract, I'm sure.
Well, the funny thing is, and people have observed that Petrie has played a lot better since they fired Ducharme.
Sure, that's always going to help. Ducharme, yeah, I mean, a lot of guys are playing better.
The problem with Petrie is not his performance level; it's his age combined with his contract.
Yes.
No, he's 34. He's 34 years old. Like, it doesn't feel like he's 34, but he is. So
right.
Yeah.
But
he has played very, very, very badly this year. Like everybody you talk to in Montreal just says that he's just been awful.
Right. No, with Ducharme, he was terrible. I mean, and most of that team has been terrible all year. But I mean, they've won 3 games in a row under Saint Louis. I mean, maybe it's a situation where it's the usual bounce you get from an interim coach.
I do want to emphasize what Mike just said, though, just so we all heard it. So the Canadians can win 3 games in a row. The Flyers can't. They have no chance of winning 3 games in a row.
I know. No, it's true.
I don't know if you know this, Kev. They've won 1 game in the new year.
Wow.
Yeah, this is the worst it's ever been.
1 game.
Yeah. I actually do know that because Carter Hart is my number 3 goalie on my fantasy team, and he's been brutal. And not brutal in the sense of being an NHL goalie, brutal in terms of being a fantasy person.
Right,
for sure. Yeah. So, he's actually played pretty well, believe it or not.
Yeah, he's played good.
But he's, from the fantasy perspective, he's only got 9 wins.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that is. I mean, you would never have predicted that coming in.
No, it's another crazy game last. It's just this team is in such.
I'm surprised we didn't see Claude Giroux on the chart there. I guess you want to rope everybody.
He's on there.
I know, but you didn't show it. You didn't talk about it.
No, he's on the very top.
You got to pay to see Claude Giroux.
No, you don't actually. He's the one player you don't have to pay to see right now. He's the very top.
Right. Then we should be chatting about Claude Giroux.
Let's bring him up. He's the one player.
Johnny Manziel, come on, do it.
One player that's on there for free. But we'll talk about him. I was trying to give them bonuses, other players. All right.
3,300 messages.
3,300 messages. Ignore that. Yep, I get a lot of messages sent to me on here. I catch up every week, but hey, we'll just ignore that whole thing.
If you're stuck on the highway and you need money, don't put it in a message to Eck.
Yeah, don't direct message me on the website at least. No, we're gonna get rid of this. All right, let's go up here.
Phone number is there? No, just
yeah, right. I know. Claude Giroux, we'll give you Hampus Lindholm. How about that? We'll give you
hide it. There you go.
All right, here we go. So there you have it. So Claude Giroux, Colorado, obviously still out there. I've heard Minnesota interested. The Flyers at 15%.
That's too much.
It is probably too much, but it's okay.
It might be, but like I've said before, Claude's a bit of a strange character who I know a little bit better than most players, and I kind of get the sense from him that he might just be the kind of guy who's like, what, I'll play here for a lot less next year to stay as a Flyer.
Yeah, but don't you think at some point they have to have the conversations with him? Claude, we love you, but leave.
You're worth more to us out the door.
Yeah, I mean, we need to repair our team, and I'm sorry, but you're the way we can start the process.
And it's good that you have the Rangers for 5%, because I told you when I was in the Garden, it was being talked about. It probably won't happen, but there probably was a phone call.
I think it very much could. I mean, 5% is low, obviously, but I do think it can happen. I don't think it's necessarily out of the question at all.
But this chart is reflective of something that I think shouldn't be the case, but I think is, and that's the Flyers do not want to trade him to the East. And honestly, if I'm the Flyers, I mean, and you can get Giroux to approve a deal to a team in the East, and they're offering the most, I'd trade him there in a second. I wouldn't care if it's Boston or the Islanders, Florida, or not the Islanders. It's over.
Not really yet, but it's close. Yeah, it's getting there.
But or the Rangers or Florida. If they're offering the most, that's the deal I'm doing. Well, who cares?
I mean, honestly, and I brought this point up to somebody I talked to yesterday too. If Giroux really does want to stay, there's no reason he can't come back in the summer and sign here. So, I mean, if he really wants
nothing's stopping him, but we
it
know
does give the Flyers a
usually
chance
doesn't happen.
to get
Well,
something.
if the Flyers' salary cap may stop.
That's what'll stop him.
That's what's stopping him. Yeah.
But I hope he takes advantage of this. I mean, he's still playing really well.
Yeah.
And there's a chance for him. Like he could go to Colorado, and we've all seen. And Colorado is one of the greatest examples with Bork. But teams tend to rally around guys who are trying to win a cup, and it could be a good thing for Colorado. It could be a good thing for him. They're a good team.
He could be the Butch Goring of Colorado, that last piece.
Yeah.
I mean, this is legitimately, to me, Mike, I mean, I know Boston and Rangers are down there a little bit. I'd say that's the case with the Rangers, maybe a little bit more. But with Boston, I think there's just not a whole lot of interest in Giroux. I think they have other guys that are ahead of him on their chart as far as who they want to take.
Well, I mean, Boston's desperate need right now is for a Krejci replacement, a number 2 center, because right now Charlie Coyle is playing as the number 2 center, and he's not a good fit there. I think he's better as a winger on the second line or a center on the third line. Yep. So if they're going to take a run, and do we expect Bergeron to go someplace else after this year or retire? I don't know. He's still a great player, but it's possible. And this might be their last kick at the can. So, they know more than I do in terms of in terms of his future. But
here's a gut feeling, Tuek. I don't care what you're hearing, and because a lot of times GMs won't tell you.
I don't care what you're hearing either, Russ.
No, hold on. Let me finish. And a lot of things are subterfuge. I still think the Florida Panthers would have interest in him because if they got him and made him their second line center, it would push everybody else down and make them almost unbeatable, but nobody's unbeatable, but it would make them just unbelievably superior down the middle.
I would totally agree with you. And it's not that it won't or couldn't come to be or couldn't end up on this chart, just not yet. I mean, you just haven't heard it yet. And I've asked.
I just have to believe that looking at the landscape, knowing what their chances are, if you could get a player like that, I mean, because if you think about it, if you look at all their guys, he's better. He would be their second best faceoff guy behind Barkov, and that's important in the playoffs.
Yeah, and he can do everything. He can
besides everything else he does. Yeah,
he kills penalties. He does all this. I mean, and you also remember, who has a really big voice in that room down there is Radko Gudas. Like, and it's like he really, and Gudas and Giroux are tight. They have Gudas. Giroux loved Radko Gudas. And Gudas I knew Gudas would be a great fit for Florida way back. We taught it. It's like that's what a perfect pickup for them. Flyers hurt losing him. They really did.
No question. I mean, Ristolainen helped the hurt a little because he's filled in that physical spot, but it doesn't mean they couldn't have had 2 of those guys.
Yeah, and Gudas is just he's just a different character than anybody else, and he really does bring a special, he does bring an old school, Eddie Shore hockey to your room. That is it's hard to replace. It's just hard to and that's something that Zito and loves down there. That team is that's a physically, not just a good scoring team, but a physically tough team to play against. They are really physical.
And Giroux would not make them any easier.
No, Giroux hits all the time too. So yeah, you'd have that.
But I got to tell you, if they got Claude Giroux, I think it would make Tampa worried inside the room a little bit. I do.
Yeah.
Looking at the matchups, all of a sudden with Tampa, it's not as great a matchup as it used to be.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about a guy I don't have on the chart for a second because I thought about putting him on the chart, and I talked a little bit about
Sean Avery. He was just picked up. So
and that is Zdeno Chara, who is about to set his record, tied his record.
I thought he just did.
He tied the record, I think. I think he tied the record maybe for most games, or maybe he said it now. Both are going to happen.
He tied the record.
He tied the record, right? Next game he'll break the record for most games played by a defenseman, beating out Chris Chelios, right? So Chara, has had it off. It hasn't been anything spectacular this year for sure, but at the same time, again, a player like that at that age has a playoff mode, and if you get him, would Kevin? We talked a little bit about Boston, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it was reported today too in one of the Boston websites that, and also I think one of the Islanders websites also reported that now that he's passing the record, he could quickly go to a contender, and Boston, is a possibility.
Yeah. I mean, he does bring something, and
Well, yeah. Okay. The thing is, I mean, he's obviously an all-time great and a Hall of Famer. He's limited right now. I mean, his speed has dramatically declined, but he still has a presence. He still can play, I'd say 15 minutes a night. He can still be a penalty killer. I don't think anybody's going to go in the front of the net when Zdeno Chara is standing there because they're putting their life in their own hands. I mean, I don't know if he would go across the border, but a team like Toronto right now could really use him with Muzzin's injury. But I could see him going back to Boston if they were amenable. Or Russ, do you think the Rangers would be interested in him?
I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so because of the way they have Trouba there, who's very physical. I don't think they have Nemeth, who's really just like a big behemoth too, who I don't even know will be on the playoff roster. I think they would want to actually have more mobility than that.
I mean, going back to Washington, Kev, I don't know if they burned.
It didn't seem like a good fit.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but I agree with Russ in terms of New York's defense is so mobile; they're not going to add Chara.
I think Toronto is the same way to a degree. Like I feel that their game is all about speed, and I think that he would have.
Yeah, but believe me, though, that's the problem. Why that's the reason why they need him, because their defense is not exactly tough. They got Labushkin because they needed physicality on the blue line. So. And they definitely need somebody with gravitas on the blue line if Muzzin is out long term.
I mean, maybe Lou could get a second-round pick for Chara or a conditional second or something.
Yeah, I think.
I just don't know.
I don't think they'll get a second.
Not even a conditional second.
No, third or fourth.
That's what I think too. Third-round pick.
Yeah,
like I was saying, condition, like if they make it to the Stanley Cup, you get a second. If not, it's a third.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but he has to want to go where they're trading him.
Yeah, no doubt.
I don't think Lou has enough respect for Chara to say, okay, I'm only going to do this if you say you want to go. I'm not going to trade you someplace and you're.
No, that's true. He will do that.
Yeah, I agree. But Boston obviously is the place he would go. So
I think.
I would think, unless there were some bridges.
Unless he's still mad, we don't know.
Right. That's what I because I don't know that. I mean,
it's possible. It's
maybe at the last minute, Krejci texts him and said, "Don't do it," and he doesn't know.
There you go. That's all the time we have for today, folks. Thanks everybody for joining us. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. And thanks so much for watching and going to the website. We will be back again tomorrow with more fun stuff for you.